Hello and welcome back. We're here to talk about Kaylin, also known as Eloria, from the Loraillvon series, book 1 titled Self-Conclusion and book 2 titled Alter. There will be spoilers, so if you haven't watched any of these videos yet, please know we'll be talking about things in the book that you do not want to have spoiled if you have not read them. Yep. So if you want to read the books, stop listening. Come back later. If you have read the books, let's talk. If you just don't care, but you want to hear us because you like us, all right, maybe we'll convince you to read them by the end of this. Just, they won't be as fun. All right. Let's talk first about Kaylin.
Okay.
Again, hopefully you've read the book, so you know what we're talking about. She does change her name early on to Eloria, so Kaylin/Eloria. Mm-hmm. But at the very beginning of Self-Conclusion, I tried to write Kaylin as, you know, your everyday hurting teen.
Yeah.
Her life is a little rougher than most. What's funny is I have a lot of moms who've actually read this book who said they almost had to put it down. Like they hardly got through it. They said this is too difficult. The family life is too hard to read. They just emotionally almost couldn't handle it, which for me is a little frustrating and hard because I'm like, do you know what happens in families these days? Mm-hmm. Now you and I have worked, or you still work, with very extreme cases, with families that very terrible things, very sometimes illegal things are going on, and we're there to support and help these teens or these kids going through it. I did not put that severe of circumstances in for my character, but she more struggles with everyday teen stuff and maybe a not fully safe, she doesn't always feel safe at home kind of situation. I guess for you as a reader, mm-hmm. what do you think about the first 3 chapters of the book?
They are a little hard to swallow. I guess I am used to reading that kind of situation. But my heart really goes out to Kaylin. And so the reason why I wanted to keep reading was because I wanted to see healing for her. Whether that meant getting away and going into this new world, you know, or somehow finding some resolve with the situation that's at home. It just feels, it feels very, very real. I know because I read real situations every single day. And poor Kaylin, she just doesn't know how to deal with it. She actually has a therapist that she goes to, but she doesn't know how to talk to her. So she doesn't really have role models in her life that teach her how to do things well.
Yeah.
Because her mom just doesn't understand her, doesn't listen to her at all. And of course, neither does her dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know for me, going back and reading these chapters is not emotionally difficult, but I almost just want to skip past it. And I've had, my mom in particular said, just take it out. Just write the fantasy part. That's what's really good. You know, just take out the real life situation. And to me, I didn't feel like I could because like the whole book is about what in her real life led her to this other world. And it affects the end of the book too. Again, spoilers, you know, she ends up back in the real world wondering if any of it was real. She's given these diagnoses and told, like, you know, you made a better version of yourself. You have multiple personalities happening, bipolar, multiple personality disorder, depression, like severe depression. They think that she attempted suicide. All these are topics that are talked about in the book, and yet it is still a YA novel because, just to give a few facts, kids as young as, 12 are contemplating suicide. And I definitely want to say, like, talking about suicide does not make someone more prone to consider it or act on it. So I don't want anyone to be, like, listening to this thinking, oh my gosh, you shouldn't be saying these things. What if a teenager's thinking about suicide and watching your video? Talking about suicide does not lead one to, you know, the act of suicide. Yeah. But Remedy Live, you can check them out, remedylive.com. I feel like we should definitely mention them. Is an online chat center that talks to kids, talks to adults, talks to anyone struggling with these kinds of things. I think counseling is an amazing resource, but I definitely think you have to sometimes find the right counselor. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some counselors specialize in certain topics while others don't. And I think Kaylin's in a spot where she's being told there are things wrong with her, but she's wondering, is there really anything wrong with me? She thinks there is, and yet she's like, I don't think it's as serious as people think. But yeah, she definitely struggles.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. I self-published. I did not get traditionally published, but I have looked up, literary agents. I've researched, what kind of books people are out there looking for. And I've seen a lot of people don't want book submissions about hurting teens. Teenagers who don't feel like they have any friends in high school. Teenagers who don't get along with their parents. They're like, we're just tired of that. It's overused. And that is really frustrating to me because that is still the world we live in.
Right.
Yeah, teenagers get in tiffs with their parents. Yeah, teenagers want to get out of the house. They want to live their own lives sometimes. But so many, you go to any high school and almost every teenager there will tell you that they don't feel like they belong, that they struggle with something at home. It might be very serious. It might be something minor, that they don't feel listened to. They don't feel understood by family members. But I don't think it's realistic for really the industry, whether it be the book industry, the movie industry, to say, oh, we're tired of this topic, it's overplayed, because it's very real and I think it needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's Kaylin. And then she enters this fantasy world as Eloria, and I feel like the biggest thing, and tell me if I did this well, the biggest thing I wanted to get across is basically she went from being alone. I kind of wrote it. I tried to write it like you're outside looking in on her life. And then when you get into Loraillvon, into this new world, you're in it with her. Like you're much more almost up close with the characters. And I wanted you to be able to tell right away she was accepted. Something was different. Yeah, they're a little nervous about her, but right away she's got friends. She's got a purpose. The exact opposite of what she was feeling at home.
Yeah.
Did you feel that? Did you ever make those connections?
Killian is a jerk to her.
Please go see the video about Killian as a character.
Oh yeah, it's a completely different situation. And I feel like she has different fears in the new world as well, because she's very sarcastic in real life, as many teenagers are.
Those are fun scenes, her and the counselor.
Yeah. She's very sarcastic, and it's quite funny to read. But when she goes into Loraillvon, it's a different type of fear, and she doesn't really know. Everything is new, and she doesn't, like, people are finally responding to her and listening to her for the first time, and she doesn't know what to do with that. Yeah, so I feel like she's more timid, but also in a different way, not as in a my dad's gonna hurt me type of way. It's more of, I don't know what's coming in this world, and I just don't know what to do.
Yeah. But watch out for Killian. He might throw a punch, but
right. He might nick you with a sword.
Which is so funny because I'm thinking about that, and even her fear of being hurt by Killian is so different than the fear of almost less pain subjected to her by her family. And I've never made that connection before. Sorry, sitting here having a revelation. She's in a new world, new people, and she's less afraid of a sword, less afraid of a punch than when she's at home with the family, the people she's known all of her life. She's more afraid of being slapped, almost. She's more afraid of a hand coming her way in the real world than in the fantasy or the new world.
Her nightmares are worse than her actual reality.
Yes. Yeah. It's a great way to say it. What was one of your favorite moments with Eloria in self-conclusion?
I think one of my favorite moments probably was when she could first start to hear Sorel's thoughts.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's kind of one of those moments where everything starts to click. And I love in fantasy books when a character kind of comes into their own and starts to see results of things that they've been working really hard at. So like a lot of times that's, I love books with combat in it, I guess. Like old time combat with like swords and bow and arrow and things like that. And so she's been training for so long. But when she finally gets into Sorel's mind, they realize that they can kind of transfer memories, in a way that she actually becomes a better fighter because of it, because she can understand how things are supposed to happen with her body. And so it's just kind of really cool because she she kind of loses a little bit more of that fear, that she can't do things, and it's kind of like, hey, I can do this.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah.
I will say one of my favorite parts with Eloria is between her and Killian.
Yeah, of course.
I love Killian. But it's actually like around the same time. They're climbing up the mountain. They're on their way to the high landing to see what this dark cloud is, what's going on, try to meet this dragon, which I think they've already seen Emerald at this point. But they're almost there. And I almost want to read it because I find it so funny. But Killian's like, you're awful slow today. She's like, well, you're awful this today. And like, she just starts dishing it back to him. And that's when I'm like, yeah, girl, you feel good now. Like, you're in your element. You feel comfortable. Like, you are taking over again. And I feel like that's the first time she really starts to take over. She's maybe quipped back at Killian a few times or stood up for herself here and there. But I feel like that's the time where she's like, okay, bring it. Like, I'm over this. I'm tired. I've been doing, like, I've had all these memories poured in my head. I've been hiking this mountain. There's some doomful something coming towards us. Like, because at one point, I mean, she sucks at it because Killian clearly has more practice being a jerk. But, like, he says, like, something like, well, at least I've got something. Like, at least I've got skill. And she's like, well, at least I've got a prophecy. And he just looks at her like, really? At least you've got, okay, Eloria. Good job, you know?
Nice comeback.
Yeah. But I just love it because it's that moment where she gets quippy and snippy back at him. But it's like such fun banter back and forth,
So in the second book, it's pretty early on that she gets captured. Am I remembering that correctly?
She wakes up in
the
evil side of the mountains with Quell's Raw.
So what's cool about that is that, I mean, when she's back in the real world, she does have this, like, crisis of identity. But when she finally realizes, hey, this is real, and I'm going back to the place that I love, she wakes up in this, like, essentially torture chamber kind of thing. But she has to fight right away, and she does. She gets up and she does it. You know, every single night she's, like, fighting for her life. And but she's like, I mean, to me, that just speaks strength, you know, and it's like the things that she had, that she'd learned from the last time she was here, she held on to that, you know, and she held on to these lessons.
I couldn't have her start all over again.
No. So, and she's much more self-aware, I think, too. She's not going to let what Killian did to her the first time, it's not going to happen again, you know, so she's more careful with Gabriel. She's careful with Killian too, and so I think she's guarding her heart more.
Women, guard your hearts.
Yeah. So when she finally makes her decision of what she's going to do, she's confident in that. I read the book in one day. So
that should give you a clue. If you haven't read the book, it's a one-dayer.
It's been a while, and I haven't read the second one multiple times yet. So I've been concentrating on the first one right now.
I liked her realism a little bit when she finds out who Killian is. Like, it's again like her mind just trying to comprehend everything, and she's in normal shock, I would say. But you know, just this funny little teenager moment where she's like, why do you have wings? Why do you have wings? Where is your shirt? Why do you have wings? Like, you know, I think we should all justly ask a man, where is your shirt? If he's standing before you without a shirt, like, come on, guys.
But then also, why do you have wings?
Yeah, I had fun. That scene I rewrote so many times because it never felt right in my gut. But that moment I liked. Where's your shirt? It didn't feel as cheesy as some other one-liners, like this guy named Jace sometimes does from a book series. But it was still, I thought, well-placed. So, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's great.
All right. That's enough about Eloria. Tune back in. We're going to keep talking about characters. Again, only watch if you want the spoilers.